The whole in sickness and in health thing in marriage does not apply to men. Let me tell you what I mean by that. We already know that men, in general, statistically, are proven to just bail if their wives have like a terminal illness or whatever. So before we get into that they leave us all the time and that women need to start leaving men, especially if they get super sick, I'm going to deep dive on that. Please follow my Patreon. I got a live coming up on Sunday. We're going to talk about some of this stuff there. We're going to talk about all kinds of cool stuff. Join Patreon to be there for that. Also, I'm going to be doing a lot of like random fun travel content over there because I'm going to be going on vacation soon with my family and seeing them for the first time in a really, really long time, my American family. Anyway, like, comment, share, tell me what you're thinking while you're watching this. And hey, voila. Like, I'm not making this up. Women are 6 times more likely to end up separated or divorced if they are diagnosed with cancer or multiple sclerosis than if their male partners are facing the same illness. Like, this has been proven. 6 times more. Like, so we know that like men are not in it for the long run if it's inconvenient to them. Unless they truly, 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 truly love their partner, they are just gonna just dip out. Not only is statistics say this, but every time I talk about this in any capacity, the number of nurses and people who work in hospitals in general, they're like, oh yeah, we have a talk. We have a special talk when a woman gets diagnosed with cancer, like, hey, or whatever. Like, they have to prepare women that their husbands may leave, right? There's so many famous cases of this. Politicians, stars. We also know that they are more likely to leave if their children have special needs. I don't have any statistics on this, but every time I even mention this whatsoever, teachers or anybody who works with kids with disabilities and just special needs in general be like, oh yeah, dads almost either A, just don't show up to do the extra work, or they literally just bail. I mean, surveys show that the rate of divorce for families with a child with disabilities may be as high as 87%. Now, maybe it's women divorcing these men. Maybe, sometimes, but how much you want to bet? Who do you think is initiating these divorces? Other than in the case of a woman initiating it, because, wow, this man is just dead weight and he's not helping at all. The divorce rate in families with a child with autism is 80%. Like, what? And the crazy thing is that this whole time they have been shaming us for causing this. Like, women, you better not look at this. Men are the ones causing a lot of this. This is kind of newer research because everyone was blaming us for waiting too late and literally having a geriatric pregnancy. What is it? If you're like over 35, they literally have a term for it. Most of my friends have geriatric patients. Is that the word? Whatever it is. It's like almost insulting. And then we got Robert De Niro and all those dudes just having babies in their 80s, you know? But, you know, y'all's baby gravy ain't great. Men's biological clocks, they have them too. The fertility drops with age and the likelihood of offspring having conditions such as schizophrenia and leukemia rises. Been blaming all kinds of stuff on women waiting too late. Oh, it's her egg. No, it's men, you know what I mean? Like, not just them waiting late, but men, like how, if they take care of themselves, if they are doing a lot of or whatever, like, don't think that their little sperm don't affect the child. And there's all this stuff. Now, I don't know how much research is done. This is just like a little, I am getting into a much bigger thing about women leaving men in older age. But I just want to give some background first. Advanced paternal age over 40 increases the risk of breast cancer in the daughters by around 60%. What? According to one of the studies, an American researcher looked at 1 of 5 to find a link between advanced paternal age and breast cancer. Children conceived by fathers over 40 also have a 30% increased risk in levels of epilepsy, 37% higher risk of Down syndrome, 14% greater risk of childhood leukemia, and a 70% greater risk of central nervous system cancer. What? Fathers are over 45. There is a 3-fold increased risk of, don't know how to say that, retinoblastoma, rare type of eye cancer. Older fathers are also at risk of autism and schizophrenia. Okay, so here's just some background before I get into my point. Point being that I just want women to think about this stuff before you have children with men and marry men. One, if you get sick, the whole sickness and health, the better for better or worse, all that crap, that's for us. Those vows are for us because we know most men are not taking that seriously. Marriage is benefiting them in every way, social capital, free labor, tons and tons and tons of free labor, access to our bodies, unpaid secretary, worker, domestic labor, mental load, life coach, calendar person, cheerleader. Yay, you can do it. All that stuff. So they get all this stuff. And then when they stop actually, like they get bored or they find another woman who can give them all that stuff, then they're out. Or if a woman gets cancer, or if the child has a disability, or anything gets hard, they're out. One, because they don't want to. If they don't really, 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 really love that mom, they are out. Or that wife, they are out. If they find someone better, or they'll stay and get all that labor and just make it clear to you that they don't care. So please, 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 please stop chasing after men and thinking that, like you are somehow blessed if a man picked you to marry you. That doesn't mean he actually likes you. Pay close attention. It's not super duper clear that this man knows that he has won the lottery with you. I promise you, over time, he's going to just stop. He's going to be more likely to do what a lot of men and fathers have been doing for a long time. Also, it's not like this stuff. This is a labor issue. It's a labor issue. It's a lot of issues, but labor is the big one. Exploitation of labor, right? But the other thing, and especially when it comes to their children, is like this eugenics crap, where this is all how toxic masculinity has like conditioned these men to miss out on love, because caregiving is somehow seen as like, only women do that. Only women love their children. Only women take care of people. I mean, men are so homophobic, at least in the US. I don't see it quite like this anywhere else I've ever lived. The fact that men will call each other gay for bragging about their wives and loving their wives. When I first started realizing that they are shaming each other and literally using homophobia to shame men for openly, shamelessly loving their wives, I was like, oh my God, y'all, you are literally creating a prison of your own making anyway. Which is, again, when you are dating, if you date men, cishet men, or men you think are cishet, look for homophobia, transphobia, all that stuff. If they have that in them, I promise you, that is going to impact you one day, because they are tied like this, just like all the systems, white supremacy culture, capitalism, patriarchy, all that, they're tied together, that you can't remove one from the other. All roads lead to bigotry, you know what I mean, or whatever. Humanization is dehumanization. So the men will leave their children if they're disabled or have any kind of special needs, A, because they don't want to do the labor, and they've been taught to be entitled to just things being easy. They also hate themselves a lot of times. And so they think that a child who is not perfect in their eyes is a reflection of them, right? And at the same time, women are expected to never leave men when things get hard. That's why marriage is hard. Relationships are challenging, because your growth is, they call it growing pains for a reason. I have grown so much in my marriage because I've learned a lot about myself and what I need to work on and what I'm really great at. And like, it's a reflection of all the things that I didn't even realize that are awesome about me. And it also has moments of whenever we clash, we realize there's something that I need to work on, or he needs to work on, or we need to work on, right? So growth isn't easy, but marriage isn't hard, okay? Life is hard. Growth is hard. But marriage is hard. That is basically being like, endure, 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 endure. No, that's right, okay? I'm not saying that if you never fight in a marriage, that's bad. You should be fighting. You should be, if you're not, then you're probably biting your tongue. Or one of you is avoiding something, because there's no way two people can spend that much time together, share finances and a home and children and parent and do all this thing together without ever disagreeing. Like, that's like not healthy. Somebody is lying through omission. And it's probably this girl showing up. Oh, everything's happy, 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 right? So, but The thing about the vows is that women are never supposed to leave. And now we're going to get into a story of why we need to get rid of that. We need for us to start. Does that mean you just cut and run all the time? No. I am, especially because of my past, I have been a flight risk. I'm the person, nope, right? Which is funny because the one relationship I really should have left, I stayed at all costs, almost to my death. But in healthier relationships, when things get challenging, I have to fight that instinct to be like, I'm out, because that's a self-sabotager, right? I want, if any women who before you enter a marriage, because I know a lot of women who follow me are like, I'm never dating again, and you may not. Good for you. I support wherever you are in your journey, whatever, if you decenter men are outdone for good, that's fine. I support that decision. If you want to try it out, I support that. If you're decentering men within a relationship, I support that. Wherever you're at, I support. We are all learning and growing, and it's never too late to do this work, right? But I want us to reframe what marriage is. Because a lot of men seem to think that they know they can get fired from their jobs, but they don't think they can get fired from their actual, job as a husband. If you show up and if you're on my team and you suck, if you just suck and you're not even working on anything, you don't show up to practice, you don't carry your own weight, you make me do all the work on this team, but then you get all the wins of our team and you are the one who always accepts the trophies for all of our wins and I get nothing out of it. I don't want to be your teammate. I want a new team where I'm just like a free agent. And so I think women need to go into marriage realizing this is why you need to do paperwork up front. Get yourself legally protected. There's nothing wrong with protecting yourself because then you can choose every day to stay in that marriage versus being like, oh, I got to make this work because everything is resting on this working. And that's how we will end up lying to ourselves and living in delusion and becoming resentful, bitter women. And sometimes get, unalived or financially ruined or both. So going into a marriage, that means that as long as that, obviously you are going to be that's what's kind of great about it is usually when I'm at my best is when he has a moment to work on stuff. When he is doing his best, then I can relax and work on stuff. And this is what happens with my friendships too. I talk about Liz all the time. We're almost never in a really bad place at the same time. And it's beautiful because usually when she needs help, I'm in a great place to help because I'm doing good. I don't need her to show up for me as much. I'm going to show up more and vice versa, right? And I found that to be true in marriage too. And so, not always. Every once in a while, you're both going through it at the same time. But women need to go into marriage being prepared for it to not work out. Financially being prepared, mentally being prepared. That doesn't mean you're just going to cut and run and that you're not committed. But we know that women's problems in general is staying with men who are exploiting you and don't love you. So now let's bring into a much bigger topic that doesn't get talked about enough. But we're going to see this a lot more, especially in the coming years. So this was to the New York Times, The Ethicist. And I usually don't take men's advice. Sometimes I do. I listen to my husband's advice. One of my therapists is a man. And I listen to some of my guy friends' advice. Those are all really emotionally intelligent men who also understand patriarchy and that the realities of women and the conditioning of women and conditioning of men is very different and circumstances are different. So they take those into account. So I do listen to men. But a lot of times I side-eye advice from men. Because I don't know this guy's advice enough, but I definitely know he has missed because he just doesn't understand everything due to lack of lived experiences or educating himself about being a woman. Anyway, I do agree with a lot of his advice though. So I strongly suspect that my husband is developing dementia. His doctors have found nothing wrong with him. I understand that many cognition tests might not find anything amiss in the early stages of the disease. And I imagine that what are now subtle changes will eventually become obvious. In the meantime, our decades-long relationship has eroded. My insistence that he engage with me in maintaining a quality relationship has led to endless fighting and brought me to the brink of divorce. Okay, are you sure that this is dementia? Are you sure this is dementia? Because this just be me and some of my friends like to call it old white man syndrome, but I'm sure this is not just old white men. But I do know white men very well, and that entitlement of whiteness and man combined, woo, it gets worse with age unless they, or have worked on themselves and have whatever, unless they've actually grown in wisdom rather than double down in their entitlement. But I'm not sure if this is dementia. This just sounds like why there's so many gray divorces now is because as men get age, once they don't have a job anymore. I did a whole long video on this like months ago. Once they lose that sense of purpose or are outside the house and have all these, I even wrote that the Harper's Bazaar piece. Men have no friends and women bear the burden. This one? Men have no friends and women bear the burden. Oh, sorry, you can't. Harper's Bazaar. It was also in Oprah and a bunch of other. It's been reprinted so many times. But that was one of the main takeaways of that is that a lot of women who are older, like my mom's age, especially if they're with partners they've been with for so long and have raised kids together and whatever, a lot of those women, instead of actually leaving them, they're just waiting for their husbands to die. That literally some of the women I interviewed were like, yeah, I can't wait to go on a women's cruise, because this man is like not offering anything because they lose their friends from work. They lose their whole life. They've just isolated themselves more and more and more and more. And the wives who are very involved in church or just community volunteering, like women will always find a sense of purpose if they don't have a job that pays them, they will always find a job. Almost always. No, women obviously. But that's what we've been taught to do. Give, care, blah, blah, blah. So this is actually quite common, which is why a lot of women are having the great divorces because they're like, wow, this guy was kind of a jerk and entitled, but like, whatever, we got along. But now that he doesn't have a job, or now that maybe he is not as physically fit as he wants to be, or just not able to do all the things, now he's a grumpy old man. And also, if they don't take care of themselves, guess who's going to take care of them? That's on you. And we're expected to do that. Even if these men literally don't take care of themselves. We know these men will leave us if we don't take care of ourselves. It's so risky for us to get sick, but they don't seem to think that them taking care of themselves so that they, that's part of the social contract. I take care of myself for myself and the people it's going to directly impact. If I'm in a marriage with someone, it's my responsibility to take care of my health. I mean, none of us are perfect. We all have vices. We all whatever. We're all complex people. But if I'm working really hard on myself, I expect my partner to do the same. And if they're not, and they're just self-destructing, and they never get to a place where they are going to show up for themselves so that they can also show up in the marriage, well, eventually, a partner is going to get sick of that because all they see is where is she? Where is she? This. Hospice wife. This is what you're gonna be. We see her, we're like, I don't want to be her. But we watch a man just not take care of themselves, and we're like, oh my God, this is gonna be my fate. So the funny thing is that men don't put themselves, they don't see themselves as hospice husbands at any point. And remember, even in The Notebook, it's such a romantic story because he cared for his wife. Did he really? I did a whole breakdown of that. That man was not caring for her. He was literally torturing her every day by making her read that stupid book. So then she was like, oh, I remember. And then she's like, wait, who are you? And then she has to get like a shot and be physically restrained because it's so upsetting to her. So even when men are like, I'm taking care of my wife, even into old age, like if they are still so selfish, like Noah was, he's literally just going there to see her. And so he can get this thrill of connecting with this woman despite the consequences it has on her. Unless men really truly learn how to be nurturing individuals, which they are not taught to be, but we can change that. Teach your sons that if you haven't. They are not going to be hospice husbands, and if they are, they're going to be awful at it. And I did reporting on that too. Some of them will literally put them in a car and strap them in a seatbelt because they don't want to babysit them. Leave her in a car for hours. Some of the things that some of these men do when they're caretaking is terrifying. In sickness and in health, it's you're taking a commitment to take care of each other and love each other in love or in health and in illness. But the caveat is that you don't just self-destruct for years and years and years and years and think that she owes you that kind of care when she was taking care of herself and maybe even you too. Like, that's not fair. That's not thoughtful, And again, none of us are perfect. We all have our bad habits. I don't sleep enough. I work too much. I should eat more variety of foods. Like, there's things whatever, we're not perfect, but you know the difference, right? One is just like, whatever. I just don't care. I don't want to I don't want to take care of myself. And the other one is I'm doing my best and I'm trying to make improvements when I can, not just for myself, but for the impact on my partner. So I'm really not sure that this man has dementia. He just may be doing what a lot of men do, is feel more entitled with age, full of more self-hate because they haven't worked on themselves or dealt or looked in the mirror and really dealt with that deep-seated stuff. Haven't unpacked patriarchy or any of the stuff that makes them feel like they just to take advantage of their wives. And if you add to that them not ever really loving you all that much, you're screwed. You're screwed, man. So we're going to see more gray divorces. We already are. Since I've come to understand that early stage dementia is the root of our... Wait, but where... What? Why are you concluding that, lady? I'm not convinced he has dementia. Doctors haven't found anything yet. I mean, we know that dementia does change people. And I'm going to go into that in a minute. But this was you just connected A and B real quick here. Anyway, okay. So now, if that's what your understanding is, great. So let's just say this is all true. I've come to understand that early stage dementia is at the root of our problems. Doctors apparently aren't agreeing with you. But okay, I've quit trying to fix our relationship. Our fighting has stopped, but it's a lonely place to be. I'm not thrilled about spending my retirement years as a caregiver. I mean, look, lady, let's just take her out of it. Let's say you're not going to be a caregiver. Let's say he doesn't have Alzheimer's. This is grounds for divorce right here. You fight all the time with your husband because you ask him to, what does it say? My insistence that he engage with me and maintaining a quality relationship has led to endless fighting. So in order to get your husband, you have to like nag your husband into like caring? What? That right there is like, literally take the dementia out of it. I think it's easier for women to blame dementia for this. I'm not convinced that's what it is, but okay. Like, she hasn't said anything about him forgetting anything. He's passing cognitive tests? Like, oh my gosh. But you know what? If you need to believe that it's dementia to get you out of a situation where you are like miserable, great. You believe what you need to. The point is you're pissed at the idea of spending the rest of your life, literally until your death or his death, dealing with somebody you fight with when you ask him to engage in your relationship and making it something that is the least bit okay. I don't even know I would love to know what quality relationship looked like to her. Like, you actually talk to me versus just ignore me and expect me to do endless labor. Like, what does that even look like? It's a huge sacrifice that will narrow my life significantly. Do we both need to go down with the ship? Can I leave now and let his family deal with this? Or am I obligated to stay and care for him? Again, no signs that this is dementia. But okay, sometimes women just need to do whatever girl math, woman math, married woman math you need to do to like prioritize your own health. And I don't just mean mental health, I mean physical health, because we know that being in a house with a man who is mean to you and stresses you out and you fight with all the time when just asking for, a quality marriage, that will take years off of your life. And that's one of the sad things, is that in a lot of these women that I was interviewing, and they're all waiting for their husbands to die before they go on a cruise with their best friend. Well, are you not worried that you're not going to die first? Because I don't care how well you eat, how well you take care of yourself, what you do, how much you exercise. Oh, look at his little paw, like right there covering up. Like the impact of stress and being in the house with a stressful person, especially someone in a large body that could that level of stress will make you sick. They unalive you through your nervous system. Like, that's the sad thing. Both of my grandmas died long before their husbands. One of them, I'm not sure what their relationship was like, but the other one was literally a hostage. Hated that man. He wouldn't let her divorce him because our grandmas, a lot of them were just hostages, right? Literally couldn't leave. Couldn't leave, right? And she died long, but he went on to have several romances and then a long marriage. He just had like a whole second life because he got rid of her, even though he would not let her go. He was I'm king of the mountain now at her funeral. Literally celebrating her death at her funeral. So don't just wait. Just stick it out. You got one life right now. Maybe you have another life. Maybe you believe in afterlife. Maybe you believe in reincarnation. But this is the only life you have right now. Why are you just going to wait around? Knowing that this man is like, what she knows is that he's like argues with her when she asks him to work on this. So you know what? And okay, he has dementia, get out. Okay, so whatever you got to tell yourself to justify it, get out. But we know that when women leave men when they're sick, they get so much crap for that. They get crap from the family because his family doesn't want to deal with him either. They probably know he's a jerk, especially if he has children. They're like, I don't want to take care of him. So they're mad at her for not sticking around. If he has friends, which he probably doesn't, they're not taking care of him. And that's why a lot of men are in these homes by themselves with no one visiting them, because they haven't sown the social fabric. They haven't created that community of love and giving and care and all those things. And so when the one person they were counting on to do all that for them that they didn't appreciate and they treated like crap, and she's finally have enough, there's nowhere left for him to go. Although we know that some women will oftentimes swoop in and take care of him, because men just get endless empathy when they need something. Whereas a lot of women who are unhoused, homeless women, I'm not sure which term to use. Most of those are because of domestic violence or something, abuse relating to a man. Or a lot of men who are in those situations, it's for different reasons. But it isn't because a woman abused them and left them to die. I have plenty of empathy for, war vets and all, like, there's so many things that, like, I'm not saying that anyone deserves to be in that situation, but I'm just saying we will give and give and give and give and give to men who nobody else will take care of because they've burned all their bridges. We're like, oh, that poor old man. We all remember I did a whole thing about Unc, that old man that college girl was helping, and he ended up being a violent criminal. Literally footage of him beating up an unhoused woman. But we don't reserve that place in our heart for women who are in the same situation, which is crazy because we know how hard it is, especially in the more intersections, the more marginalized you are, the more hard it is to survive this system. But we just always swoop in. Like, we're the heroes, y'all. We're the heroes. We always are. We swoop in and we save these men all the time. And if that man has a daughter, if mom leaves, that daughter's going to come in and swoop in probably, unless she has really... especially if she's an older daughter that was parentified. I just want women to realize that you don't have to do this. You don't have to stay. You don't have to swoop in and take care of a man because all the other women won't. A lot of these men made these situations themselves, and we prevent them from suffering the consequences of their own actions, which actually it harms us and it harms them. Some of these men will never ever learn anything because we always come in and swoop in and make their life comfortable when they get a little bit uncomfortable because they have a consequence. The comment section on this, most of the women, not all, most of the women were like, yeah, doesn't sound good for her. And guess who was shaming this woman? There's lots of men. I find it hard to understand this poster's willingness to abandon her husband now when he really needs her. Unless the marriage was irretrievably broken prior to that time. Why prior to that time? That's my problem. Yeah, prior to that time, if he already sucked, then yeah, absolutely leave. But even if this is all new, people still want women, and I'm going to get to this, some more research on this in a minute. People still will shame women into staying with dangerous men because we always are supposed to prioritize their well-being and their health and their care over our literal lives. Our literal lives. So what, he needs her? You know what she needs? To live. I agree with this one. If you're in any kind of abusive situation, you should always leave immediately if you can, right? We know that there's lots of nuance to this. Those cases have, if it's a problem that one person has the capacity to fix, but they're choosing not to, then divorce is reasonable recourse. If it's an issue that arises during the marriage, which the person cannot change, disease, company shut down, loss of limb, etc., then I would do my best to work together to get through. Yeah, I don't think anybody should be served divorce papers because they lose their job and have hit a rough patch because they become disabled, because they become sick. Like that, we know that you sign up for marriage to stick with through hard times. But the point is, if they stick in this place of like, I just give up. Oh, I lost my job. I'm not going to look for one. Oh, I'm sick, but I'm not even going to make my own doctor's appointments. I'm not going to show up to my doctor's appointment. I'm not going to actually follow a doctor's orders so my health gets better or to treat this disease. I'm just going to let her deal with it. You know? Or a lot of men, if they literally can't do anything at all, like let's say they become disabled, what they can do is be nice to the person who is loving them. A lot of men will literally be awful. They're awful patients. They are so mean to their caregiver because they feel bad and they have shame and they have all kinds of stuff. They take it out on her. By that I mean, and every time I do a video on this at all, especially people like daughters or wives who've been caregivers, you know, obviously that is like, if you become sick or disabled, there's like a grief to that. There is like, it's a huge adjustment. There's sadness. There's all kinds of very big emotions to deal with, right? What I'm talking about is men who take all of that out on their partner, right? Because like I say all the time, if men are not dealing with their stuff, we are forced to deal with it. If they're not dealing with their health, we are forced to deal with it. If they're not dealing with their big, complicated, hard emotions around something happening in their life at work or with their health or whatever, if they don't deal with that, we deal with this. This idea that men just suffer in silence is BS. Let me do a whole video on that because it's been trending lately. Like, men think that they just suffer silently. No, you don't. Ask any woman who lives with a man who is suffering silently. Believe me, they may not be saying anything, but we know. We're the ones walking on eggshells around them being like, you know, this is why I talk about weaponized moodiness. Sometimes they're weaponizing it, and sometimes they're just like, don't even care to check in with themselves and being like, oh, am I being like really hard to be around right now? They don't care. They just expect everyone to adapt to it. And I'm not saying that men are the only ones that do this. Women can absolutely do this, and we do this. But what I'm saying is that when men do this, first of all, that's that entitlement of like me being the sun and everyone just has to revolve around my moods, and also them also not being taught the language of how to deal with your emotions, or taught to ask for help and maybe go see someone and deal with it, right? And the shame and all the things that toxic masculinity teaches them to just bottle all this stuff up. But guess what? It doesn't just go nowhere. It comes out. So if they don't really learn to truly process whatever it is they're going through, whoever is in that house with them will deal with it the most. They're the first line of defense. They're on the front line of that man's internal war. And she will be the #1 casualty. He'll survive it. She won't, a lot of times. And I would love to hear from any women who have taken care of men, whether it's your dad or a partner or whatever. Unless they really, truly loved you and were really working on themselves, tell me how easy it was to care for them. Because that entitlement comes through. You're doing all this stuff and they're like, ugh. Like not even grateful for all the things that you're doing to make their lives more comfortable because you love them. They're just, ugh, like hate you for loving them. It's so weird. I mean, I get it, but like, that's why I say, being a caregiver for these men, being, hospice wife to a man who is just awful, that man is going to make you sick. Okay, so let's see what the ethicist said. I'm just going to breeze through this because I'm not, whatever. In traditional Christian marriage, vow was to stay together in sickness and in health. The possibility of divorce shifts the meaning of that promise. It becomes more of an ethical commitment, blah, blah. Oh God, I don't even want to read this. Okay, you can pause to read this if you want. I don't, sometimes I get annoyed by it. I feel like he's like a little like too like theoretical, whatever. Like, I want straight talk. Anyway, you talk about how your husband has changed. It's also possible that you've changed. Maybe he's acting this way because you're a little... I mean, she could have changed. I'm just saying. If medical professionals haven't diagnosed dementia, it's worth considering that your personal assessment could be mistaken. Okay, I agree with that. Either way, it sounds as if your worry isn't so much that you'll become a caregiver as to that you won't have a loving relationship with the person that you would be caring for. Before you sever ties, though, I would encourage you to explore couples counseling attuned in the challenge of dementia. What? Couples counseling ain't gonna fix this, bro. Oh my God. I mean, maybe. But I agree with him. She probably has changed, but maybe not in the way he's insinuating. A lot of women, when they get, the older we get, the more we realize that we have very limited time, and that, you know, especially the closer you get to like your possible death age, although we could die at any time, the more we're like, wow, this seems like I don't have much time left and I don't want to put up with this anymore. So I think she has changed, but he's not acting this way because she's changed. She's changed in that she's like not willing to do all this work to settle for this. Now that if they had kids, a lot of times, this is why women, they get divorced after the kids are gone, because they're finally like, oh God, I got to hang out with this dude by myself. No distractions of all these, you know, like that's when a lot of women start to realize that this man is just like not doing anything. He's not adding anything to the relationship. He's just in cruise control, because the wedding for him was the finish line. That he's set for life now, where wedding for a lot of women under this system is their funeral. But at a certain point, maybe decades into the marriage, like this woman, she's probably like, wow, I have missed my whole life because this dude is just like, ugh. But I don't know. I'm just pontificating. See if you can cultivate your own well-being while finding activities that play to your husband's strengths. I think you're giving this man way too much benefit of the doubt, dude, but okay. You should be able to grieve what is being lost and acknowledge whatever moments of resentment you feel without shame. Okay, agreed. I support that statement. I'm not saying that you're required to sacrifice your well-being to his. That special obligations we have to our loved ones are rooted in the value that we place on our relationship with them, with all the resilience and fragility of those relationships. Still, I hope you'll figure out a way to balance your needs with your husband. Bro, God, this is why I don't take advice from men. I promise you, it doesn't occur to him that perhaps this man, just what little I know, sounds like he is not balancing her needs with his. Most men are not taught to do that. They don't even think like that. So like, you want her, again, the vows are all enforced on women. They're not enforced on men, because if this dude is not even showing up or doing any effort to have a quality relationship like she says, this man abandoned his vows a long time ago. This man abandoned the marriage, not her, but she's the one who's going to have to file the papers, because they're too lazy to anyway, usually. She's going to have to make him get a divorce because he divorced her a long time ago, but wants her to do all the labor. That doesn't mean going down with this ship. It means trying to find a way to keep that ship afloat. Look, bro, whatever your name is, I forget. Most marriages, it's women who are keeping this ship afloat. Buying the books, putting a book, fair play. Like all the books, being like, maybe you should read this. This would really help our marriage. Sending you endless. Y'all, do you know how many women send my videos to their husbands? I'm sure their husbands aren't reading this or watching this. They're not reading the articles that I've written. They're not, you know what I mean? Some of them are. And some of those men reach out to me and thank me. So men who are really willing, humble enough and willing to listen and change and grow, will actually read those books. We'll watch those videos. But most men are not willing to keep the ship afloat. They want the free labor afloat. Women are like the life preservers of men. Right? And then when they find another life preserver, they just toss us off and get another one. We are what keeps everything afloat. Women are keeping everything afloat with all of our labor, unpaid labor. Without all of our labor, this world would just implode, bro. But you're sitting here being like, well, are you really trying hard? Are you really trying hard? Why don't you focus on fixing the marriage before you just cut and run? As if she hasn't been doing that. She already said she's trying to do that. Having said all that, I do believe that a lot of women, one of the things we do is we do get fixated on our partners, and we stop really taking care of ourselves and doing what's best for us. And in that place, we both get, it's not good. But that doesn't mean you ignore what your husband is or is not doing to keep this marriage afloat. Like, what? So this person, they actually published some of the responses to this, the ethicist advice. I think this is a great response. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I still think that they are not considering the safety of this woman. Because if this guy is just a jerk now and he actually has dementia, you better watch out. This man's probably going to get violent. This person's like, I've seen the 3 different relatives the emotional and physical violence inflicted on and perpetuated by those with dementia. We don't talk enough about this. Now, as much as I would like to think that my husband would not abandon me if I got dementia, if I became violent and made his life so difficult, I mean, I would hope that he would not sacrifice himself and his life taking care of me if I am dangerous. But the thing is that, you know, men are better equipped at taking care of women because a lot of times they are much bigger than us. When my dad had Alzheimer's, we had to call the fire department to pick him up every time he fell down. It took 3 people to get him up. Women are physically not able to care for men when they are a certain level of sickness on our own, especially if those women are older. And then in addition to that, if the men are violent, are gonna punch them. Like, I'm not taking care of anyone if they're violent to me. I don't expect my partner to do that for me. Like, obviously there's nuance to this story, but I just don't like, it baffles me that women are supposed to stay with men no matter how sick they are, no matter how violent they are, even if it's due to a sickness. We're supposed to just stick it out because that's love is love. It is already so dangerous for us to marry men at all, to sleep in a bed with something more dangerous than this every day and hoping that he just doesn't decide one day that he doesn't like you or wants to leave you and just whatever. Like, it is such a big risk for us to tie our lives to a man at all, just to live in a house with a man at all, especially given what we know statistically, that the man in our house is the possible biggest threat to our lives of anybody. No stranger danger is ever going to be as dangerous as the man that I am in a home with. And yet, if they get sick and they can blame it on dementia, we're supposed to stay? And especially if that man was awful to you and just like didn't really love you all that much to begin with. The only time this to me is an ethical decision is if that was actually a really loving marriage. Both people love the crap out of each other. And then you have an ethical dilemma of like, you know, but if they're super violent and they're a man especially, no. You shouldn't die martyring yourself. And if he loved you, he wouldn't expect you to do that because he doesn't want you to die because of him. But we're expected to. And yet we also know that men are 6 times more likely to leave us if that happens to us. So do not do anything for a man who would not do that for you and that you know wouldn't do that for you. If you are not sure that man, not a delusion, if you are just in the way they take care of you when you're sick with the flu, that is a preview to your future as old people together if you make it that long. If you got COVID, ask yourself how that man treated you during COVID, if you had it. I mean, it also depends on how bad you had it. Or even a little illness. And then also, how was he when he was sick? Is he a nightmare when he's sick? Does he actually appreciate the things that you're doing? Because I know that when I'm sick, my husband is I'm like not the natural caregiver of the two. I have to learn that. I don't know. Maybe it's just like a masculine, feminine energy thing, whatever. I don't know. But he is like the more nurturing of us. And I'm the more like, right? I've actually learned a lot about being nurturing from him. Nobody is fun to be around when they're sick. But if they are mean and total pricks and don't appreciate anything that you're doing, and that's when you're like in better health, you are screwed when that dude gets old. I like this one right here. I'm sitting here wondering if your advice to a man about his wife, if the roles were reversed, would have been the same. Women historically have lost so much of their own lives to caregiving for others all of their lives. I wonder if recommending that a woman choose independence at this stage might allow her even a few years to put herself first. Boom, Julia. Yes. This is something to think about too. I'm going to get into something else in a minute. But also, when I was in a similar situation, when I sought counsel from a divorce attorney, I received what I consider life-saving advice. He suggested that before my husband deteriorated further, we consider a legal separation or divorce in order to split our assets. That way, should my husband require years of expensive memory care, my hard-earned retirement funds would not be depleted to nothing. My husband was willing to follow this course of action. Several years later, when the dementia worsened and he had to move to a full-time memory care, I was able to miss the person he had been and have compassion for the person he became without holding any resentment. No one can judge the path that is best for you, and I urge you to listen to your heart so that whatever you decide, you can love the time you had with him. This right here, because this is literally what our family was in. Sometimes women do have to divorce their husbands who have dementia in order to not lose everything. Because at a certain point, it is dangerous for a woman to take care of a man with dementia. Like, I didn't see my dad be violent, but he almost got kicked out of the memory care center for being violent to the nurses. And when he went to the ER for something, you know, because when they're out of their comfort zone, they become like really upset. Right? Now, I have never seen my dad be physically violent in my life, but I know he comes from a very violent home. So again, when you get dementia, I think a lot of times whatever trauma was stored in there and he's also a Vietnam War vet, right? His dad was super abusive. So it is not surprising to me that once the ego is kind of removed and he's just left with they just become different versions of themselves. And yeah, I think he punched a nurse at the ER. And also just like all the nurses at the memory care center love my dad. Like, they really loved him. They loved him. But there was a few times we were afraid that we're going to have to move him because, you know, they can't control their violence when they have dementia. So women need to do whatever they need to do to protect themselves and their futures and their assets, because being a caregiver, and I've done videos on this. What is it? I forget the statistics and I can't look it up right now, but it's something like the caregiver is like, there's a large, like 40 or 50% more likely to die before their person they're taking care of after a certain age, because it is so exhausting. It is so stressful. And then on top of that, if you have a man who's becoming more aggressive and angry and potentially violent, no woman should ever stay in that. There's also this article that talks about a lot of things I don't see written about much. Dementia's hidden darkness, violence, and domestic abuse. A lot of times men who have never been violent, physically violent, a day of their life, when they get dementia, they're confused. And this is what I'm saying, that a lot of men have so much trauma that they have never dealt with, especially like boomers. Not all boomers. There's a lot of boomers who've been working on themselves, but a lot of them, men and women, just all genders, are from the generation with the therapy is like not the thing that they were told to do. And maybe EMDR and all these things that are more available to my generation, they weren't doing that stuff. So then they get dementia and they have all this trauma they've never processed from the Vietnam, from whatever happened in their families. That stuff is going to come out when they have dementia. Maybe not, but chances are they will. That's why some people are like, who is this person? The other thing that does also come out is like this really sweet side of my dad came out. This really sensitive, like teddy bear came out. It's like once the ego is removed, you see like all their parts. Some of those parts are terrifying if they come from violence. Maybe even if they don't come from violence, it doesn't mean these men can't get violent. There's another story where it's like, this woman, you know, she like loved her husband. They were, you know, but then with dementia, he gets suspicious and angry a lot. He screams at me. He yells at our son. He shouts at the postman. He even punched the caregiver. Like, if they're not violent, they're usually violent to their caregivers and the immediate family. But then also they can be like super dangerous to society. And then there's one other thing that's not talked about. Is a lot, they still do studies on this, but sometimes women who get dementia, it's because they were with violent men. This woman's story about this man who she was married to for a while, he'd get drunk every Saturday, come home and beat her up. He'd knock me out cold. Even though she hasn't seen him in more than 30 years. She's wondering if her brain, what's happening with her brain is related to that. Did this cause my dementia? Something to consider. Another thing to think about when you're married to these men, again, they may not, you know, our nervous systems, like all our bodies are impacted by violence or the constant threat of violence or the stress of a man's mood that you know is a threat of violence. Don't think that that is not going to impact your life and take years off your life or impact your brain. 1 in 10 people over the age of 65 years in the United States have dementia. 1 in 10. So it says 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men have experienced severe physical abuse by an intimate partner at some point in their life. Evidence now suggests there may be a complex but definite link between dementia and domestic abuse. So They talk about caregiver abuse, that a lot of people who have dementia or just, are sick with anything or disabled, the possible abuse by a caregiver is very high, especially if that person, it doesn't know what they're doing, doesn't know how to manage the stress of and the responsibility of that, or if they were just already abusive. So patients with dementia are extremely vulnerable to this disturbing trend. And as anybody who's dealt with someone, like my dad had Alzheimer's, and boy, I realized that that disease taught me patience. That's for sure. It is very hard watching someone you love have this. And as I've talked to some of my mutuals on here and heard their story, it's hard for the patient, it's hard for the caregiver, and just loved ones in general. It's such a confusing, hard disease. But another reason why is the violent mood swings that come with it. Because sometimes the person with dementia is the initiator of the violence rather than the recipient. The onset of dementia is known to coincide with the development of aggressive and angry tendencies. One study found that 20% of new dementia patients have behaved aggressively towards caregivers, including loved ones that they've known for years. So even if y'all have a super loving relationship, that you still, it's you have no idea who they're going to be when they have this. And then again, if they come from a lot of trauma, I mean, even if they have dealt with that trauma, I'm not convinced that it's not going to come out when they have this. And then especially, and think of the way that men are conditioned especially. This can be devastating to a person's pride or sense of self. Sometimes these emotions can manifest usually aggressive or hostile behavior. Now imagine a man who has a lot of pride. And we know that toxic masculinity has, under patriarchy, teaches them to be so proud and, all this strength and whatever. So this is creates a major identity crisis, confusion. It's embarrassing. I remember my dad just admitting, on the moments that he was just admitted that he was confused. I found that very touching when he just kind of embraced it in this way, and seeing him really grapple with it. I think he said to my sister once, "I'm not well, am I?" And just those moments, it's really hard. Anyway, I learned so much about myself and my family and my father through this illness. And in many ways, it brought us a lot closer. And it was a big part of my own healing. Again, some of y'all are no contact with your parents. I support that decision. I'm never going to tell people to, I was for a while, and then I wasn't. I'm never going to tell anyone what is best for them. But this walking my dad through Alzheimer's was honestly one of the most valuable lessons of my life. I learned a lot. I really did. And I have zero regrets about being there. Dementia can also trigger violent mood swings and outbursts. At times, these can be extreme. A patient may even seem perfectly fine one moment and be screaming and again, I spent a lot of time in memory care center. I just go and hang out with my dad for days. And I got to know the other patients there. This illness it's truly fascinating. It's tragic. It's also weirdly beautiful. Let me know if you want me to do more about just Alzheimer's, because I have so much to say about this. But this video is about what women need to consider because in sickness and in health does not apply at all, especially with this. Now let's go back to what the punch drunk. There is a possibility that abuse occurred decades ago could be contributing to the onset of dementia. There has been made much debate over whether head trauma can cause dementia or Alzheimer's. I actually think drinking a lot can cause it. I have my own theories about this. My dad was actually really worried he was going to get this, and he probably would have gotten it sooner had he not actively been challenging his brain. He literally was doing puzzles and doing all kinds of things. I think he either sensed he was going to get this or just was afraid. But I do think that years of drinking and prescription medication may have made this come more or stronger, but he did actively work on his memory to try to keep it away. We now appreciate that head trauma can be a major risk factor for dementia and Alzheimer's. In fact, this term punch drunk was introduced to describe a disorder of progressive dementia that was first seen in boxers. Seriously. This was later called dementia, blah, 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 or, CTE, Research suggests that concussions and other traumatic brain injuries may increase the early brain pathologies that lead to development of Alzheimer's, blah, blah, blah. But I'm just saying, like, we know that football players who have, and boxers who have a lot of head injury, you know, we know now that there's this major effect on them. A medical history of head injury can more than double the risk of developing Alzheimer's. With the World Health Organization estimates up to 30% of women worldwide have experienced violence from intimate partners. So a lot of us are going to be dealing with this as being the caregiver of someone with this, especially, you know, if you are a woman or raised to be a woman and conditioned to be a caregiver, like every woman I know has ever been. But we may literally get it because of who we partner up with. So that leads back to my original point, the vows, better or worse. Worse for who? Women are taught to endure, and it gets worse and worse, but we're supposed to be for better or worse. But men will literally abandon their family if they find someone, you know, who's hotter, younger, they're just tired of you. Or if you have a kid with a disability, right? Like that for better or worse, for a lot of men, doesn't apply to them. It only applies to you. In sickness and in health, same thing. We know, I mean, I think we've been in denial about it for a long, but we know, and especially because we've been listening to women telling stories, we know now that these men can leave us at any time. A lot of us saw our dads leave our moms. Yeah, we've been seeing our friends be left by their husbands. Like, even though we may be delusional about how we're like the exception or whatever, we all know on some level these men can leave us. But it seems like it never occurs to men that we may leave them. How convenient for them. So you and I or anyone, we cannot make men realize that we might leave them. Although that's why they're like pushing so hard for, you know, all this crap, right? And they're literally trying to make it illegal for us to leave them. Like if we get pregnant. What state is that? Ohio or whatever? So we can't change how they think or what they'll admit, but we need to go into marriage knowing that this is a partnership. This is a team. This is not the finish line for him and the start of a marathon for us. If over a period of time, this man does nothing but make your life worse, not easier, not better, but worse, and also becomes a threat to you, especially, I don't care how sick he is, you don't have to stay. If you can leave, take care of yourself. You're not doing anyone favors to go down with the ship, especially since we're the ones keeping this ship afloat. Anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Let me know if you want to hear more about Alzheimer's. Please follow my Patreon. I've got a live coming up on Sunday, 9 o'clock my time, 3 p.m. Eastern time with Leslie. We're going to be talking about this, some of this. We're going to be talking about, but with a sibling, not like the violence part, but just how to, parenting, boys, parenting when one of the kids has special needs and just requires more time and resources and stuff, how the other sibling, how to handle them so there's no resentment and all that. I can't wait. There's so much good stuff we're gonna talk about in that conversation, and community building. So join the Patreon if you want to be there. I'll edit it down as soon as I figure out how to edit this stuff. YouTube Studio is making it hard. I will release a version of that several weeks later. But if you want to see the whole thing and be there and participate, join the levels on the Patreon for that. Hit notifications if you want to see my videos. Subscribe if you like this. Follow Patreon if you actually want to get notifications, because even YouTube doesn't notify people when I release stuff sometimes. Thank you for being here. And also, I'm going to be going on my family vacation soon. I'm going to see my family for 2 whole weeks, my American family. I'm meeting them. And so you're going to, I'm going to be probably wearing a bathing suit and just in different places but I'm going to be sharing a lot of that on Patreon as well. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting my work. And please let me know if you have any resources or insights or stories in the comments. Et voila! Et voila! Look at you. You made it to the comment song. The comment song. The comment song. This is the creepy version of the comment song. It's time to write a comment. Oh my God. I need to practice this before anyway. type a comment. You're running out of time. Wrap it up. Wrap it up. It's ending now. See you tomorrow. Bye.